Hello, business building warrior. Welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. I'll be bringing a guest on with me in just a moment. It's another incredible success story from our community. You're going to absolutely love this guy. Check this out. He went to medical school and actually graduated. He was very specialized cancer treatment specialist, and he was off to start a great career and decided he didn't want to do that because he'd been studying e-commerce. He'd been in this community and his business was starting to take off and he wanted to do that instead. So that's what he did. And he's built a beautiful 7-figure plus business and he's got a great team. He's going to tell us all about it. He's actually got a handful of friends that he's working with as well, helping them run their businesses with his team. It's an incredible story. And here's a cool part too, as well. If you've been hearing us talking about the system, silentjimdotcom/the system is where you can go to hear and see about what I'm talking about there. That's the software that was developed by my now very good friend Kang, who is a multiple 7-figure seller in our community, who built software to completely automate the workflow of the reselling models that we teach here for both Amazon and soon Walmart. Well, Lou, our guest today, is using the system to run his business as well. So a lot of good stories woven into today's stories. He's got a lot of great lessons for us. One of the things he shares early on in our discussion today, I'll let him share it in his own words, is just how deep he had to dig, how determined he was to get together the initial money to get his e-commerce business going. He was in medical school, had very little money, and some of the things he had to do in order to get the funds together to launch his e-commerce business, which ended up ultimately being his main business. And now, like I said, with a team of 10 others, he's running multiple 7-figure businesses of his own and helping a few of his friends manage their businesses as well. It's an incredible story. A guy with no business background, no e-commerce background, jumped into our community. He talks over and over again about the value of this community, the relationships, the skills he's learned here, the education he's received here, and the quality of the people. And he is, like I said, one of the initial 200 beta testers who used Kang's system to completely automate the entire process. And he's in the process right now of going from the old systems he was using to run his very healthy Amazon reselling REPLENS business, just like we teach in the Proven Amazon course. He's running that business and he's transitioning over to the system. And he says on the episode today, it's going really well. They're very excited. They see the potential. He's now become a big advocate for this tool. And I think you're going to be hearing more from this guy. Very determined. He's doing business and life the right way. He's been very influenced by this community and by Kang, who he's befriended. So let's get him on the line right now and hear his story in his own words. I think you're going to be inspired and encouraged. One thing, before you listen to this, if you find yourself thinking, okay, I get it, this makes sense, I want to be around these kinds of people, here's what you need to do. Schedule a call with our team. Let's have a conversation. This is not a high-pressure sales pitch. This is us getting to know you, you getting to know us. Let's see if there's a good fit here. We've got free resources we'll be glad to give you if that's what you want and need. We've got some very low-cost resources to help you on your journey, if that's your preference, or if you want some one-on-one coaching. Let's see if it's a good fit. We turn people down all the time if it's not a good fit, if now's not the right time, if you don't have the margin in your life to go further faster with e-commerce coaching. We're not going to sell you coaching. We want to get you in the right lane for where you are in your season of life. But schedule a call with us. Go to silentjim.com/book a call. Schedule a call, or you can text us anytime. There's a phone number there as well where you can text us and interact that way if you prefer. But let's talk. Let's meet if we've never connected. Hey, let's get Lou on the line right now. You're going to really enjoy this conversation. Lou, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Excited to be here. I've been waiting for ever since I started. So 3 years. 3 years.
3 years.
For
wow.
this one.
So you've been in our community 3 years, or you found e-commerce 3 years ago?
Yeah, I actually found e-commerce 3 years ago. And I also been in the community, I would say, ever since the day I started.
Okay, so you started with our group. That's cool. Okay, I love it. Well, take me through the story, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so as I say, like I say an hour before this podcast, I have a feeling that I experienced, on my first day that I started, I always want to be in the podcast, but the year one, year two, I always felt like I'm not ready, like
Mm.
that feeling running through your thought, like, hey, like probably you're not ready yet. So that hour before the podcast, I thought about it and I was like, I'm actually ready. I'm actually ready to share. It's
That's
actually,
great.
so
I
that
love it.
feeling of waiting, you know, patiently waiting for the correct moment, I would say
Mm.
is finally appears.
That's
But
awesome. So it's
first
been
of
a
all,
goal of
yeah.
yours to be on this show. I'm honored, man. That's great. I love to hear that.
Yeah, it's my goal. And first of all, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to be here. And
Mm.
second of all, thank you and thank you for everybody in your team in your community, because really without you or without those people in the community, I wouldn't be here. I would say as a version of myself today, as
Wow.
great as as humble as myself. I really appreciate that.
Man, that's awesome. You're speaking from the heart and I love it. And I can't wait to hear your story. I know so very little about you. And those for me are the fun podcast episodes where someone's just coming in, they're doing great. And I don't even know who they are, but they've come up through our community and built a beautiful business. So I can't wait to dig into it, man. Keep it going.
Yeah, man. So, for everybody listening, let me take a little moment to introduce myself. My name is Lou. I'm a 27 years old, I would say, entrepreneur. I originally from Vietnam, and my life focus has always been around growing myself, growing my e-commerce and content creation businesses, while inspiring others along the way. I'm really passionate about three things. I'm passionate about self improvement, about financial independence and entrepreneurship. Those aren't just fancy word, but they are the principle that drive my success and build myself. But really, my journey started when I went to MD Anderson. Before e-commerce, I was in a medical school. It's one of the best medical school in Houston that specialize in cancer treatments. At that time, one of the quote from Confucius that I really like is that every man has two lives, and the second star when you realize you have just one. So let me take you
Oh,
back to
that's awesome. Wow. Okay. Every man
yeah,
has two lives,
two
and the
lives,
second one
and
starts
the
when you
second star
realize you only have one.
just one. Yes,
Dude,
sir.
I tell you, as a Christian, that'll preach, man. I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah. So while I was in medical school, I was in a it's called a radiation therapy. It's a
Mhm.
program that teach students how to treat cancer through
Mm.
radiations.
Right.
So I had the opportunity to work with all kind of cancer patients. Helping them to get over the disease, being there with them as their last days. Really.
Mhm.
And while the work was meaningful, it was also incredibly heavy. And it's not heavy in terms of labor heavy, but it's more of an emotional heavy. Because every
Right.
day you get to
Of
see
course.
people fighting battles against the disease.
Yeah.
What it got me going was that it made me kind of question my purpose. Like
Mm.
what I wanted to do. What I wanted my life to stand for. Because to be honest speaking, I chose medical school not because I choose to be in medical school, but I just thought it was a good hustle, right? It was a good job to get to make
Yeah.
money.
It's profitable. Yeah. You're a doctor,
It's
you're a highly specialized, trained medical professional, and you're going to get paid well to do it. Yeah. So how
yeah.
far along were you in your schooling when you made the decision to
So I actually graduated. I actually graduated.
you finish?
So I never quit. Yeah. So I started e-commerce or Amazon specifically on my second year. It was a three and a half year program. I started during the first second years, and I had the feeling to quit, but I never really wanted to quit. I really wanted to finish it because I did enjoy the people, the
Mhm.
work, the people, the meaning
Yeah.
behind the people.
Yeah. And no one can take that from you. And it could be a second
Oh
career
yeah,
someday. It sounds like, I mean, that's some pretty
yeah,
specialized
it
training,
is.
medical school.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Wow.
But back to the story. So when I started e-commerce was when I kind of questioned my purpose, what I wanted my life to stand for. So at that time I felt stuck, and I'm pretty sure you experienced this, or there's a moment in your life where you feel like it's a rat race. It's a
Yep.
constant cycle going
Yep.
back, going over and over again. And even though I was on the track to make good money, right? Like helping people cancer, I still felt the same. And going through that motion, I kind of decided to try something new. You know, at the time, I didn't know what I was going to do to get me out of that cycle. But I was like, hey, let's try something along what I'm currently doing so I can have, a perspective of what possible. And that sense of trying, the sense of, oh, hey, let's get over this, what was motivated me to take a leap of faith,
Mm.
because prior to this, I never done any business before, and my family is not a business family. Like no one ever started a business
No
before. Never.
entrepreneurs in the family in your line.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really hard. Like everybody was against it, and I didn't have any money. FYI, medical school is expensive, right? Medical
I've heard.
school is really expensive. So I didn't have any experience or capital to work with. So but for somehow I still wanted to start. So I started this side hustle in e-commerce. And one of the stories I tell everybody I meet, and especially my staff, is that how I got my first $800 for e-commerce. And this is real stories. Is that in medical school, next to my school, there's a little place. It's called Plasma Donations, and
Sure.
you can still search it up. Is that if you donate blood, you cannot get money, but if you donate plasma, you're able to get money per donation that you get.
Of course.
So in my and with plasma donation, it's the same thing with blood donation. Is that they still are putting the needle through your vein, and
Yeah.
still get your blood out, and they cycle your blood to get the plasma out.
Right.
And plasma is used in a lot of purpose, like beauty is for experimentations, for drugs, for a lot of purpose, and they're able to pay people for plasma but not for blood donations.
Right.
So when I was in that situation, I was really desperate. Like, hey, I really want to try this out, but I never had any money. So I signed up for it, and I think I did around 12 donations, and I got my first $800 to start.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. That is absolutely, how much determination and creativity and doing whatever it takes is involved in that. And I know, I've had members of my family that got to that point. I remember when I was younger, our family got to that point. I know plenty of people like, yeah, you do what it takes. So that level of commitment to the process bodes very well for a very bright future. The people who struggle are the ones like, well, I don't ever want to, do certain things, right? No, you got to be willing to do what it takes. And so the fact that you've got that inside of you, I don't know your story. I'm hearing with the listeners today your story, but I know where it's going because
yeah.
you're intelligent and you're driven. You're committed to the process, man. This is awesome, Lou. Keep going, buddy.
Yeah, man. And one thing that I just want to throw this out, and also to listener too, is that I have listened to a lot of podcasts, right?
Mm.
Majority of the knowledge, the experience I have is through other people.
Mhm.
And I have listened to people who tell stories that they never experienced, and or they never did, or their perspective or skill, right? So through my experience of listening and learning from other, my lifelong goal is always trying to be myself. Like I wouldn't say something, or I wouldn't tell a stories that I don't have any prior experience, or I have never experienced myself. I always try to speak from myself and what I only been through. So everything I say, I can confidently say that is my stories, and
Yeah.
it's really, my perspective that going through that stories. And one interesting thing that you mentioned is that when you look back right now, is a very a dedicated action, to go out and get that donation. But really at that time, I was really just desperate. I was really just wanted to try. So a lot of action that we did in the past, we look back, even though it's looked crazy, it looked like a great move. At that time, it was just something that we did out of ordinary that we just want to get going. But we never thought that it has such a huge impacts to our life, because without the 800, I have no idea how I was gonna start. You know that so that 800, even though now it's such a not small amount of money, but comparing to the capital that we use, the money that we buy inventory is nothing. But that
Right.
$800 changed everything at that time.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I just appreciate the commitment and dedication. Even if things hadn't turned out well, it would be an amazing story. But the fact that you leveraged that initial capital, listened to some good advice, took action, persisted. I'm sure not everything you did worked. I mean, you've had some failures along the way, but just a great story, man. I just love that these types of stories are possible. It's tremendous.
Yes, sir.
But keep this
Yeah.
keep the story going, man.
Yeah, so let me keep going with it. So after so I experienced with e-coms, and I finally landed with Amazon. So I continue learning and doing with Amazon. I was doing retail arbitrage, and I was doing retail arbitrage and online arbitrage my second and last years of medical school. I transitioned to online arbitrage full time after I graduated from medical school. So after I graduated from medical school, I make a choice that surprised a lot of people. I didn't pursue medicine full time, and that was a really hard choice, because, as I say, my family never had any business background. So at the time, I was against a lot of, my parents wanted, and even my girlfriend, that she was surprised about that, because everybody was expect me to finish medical school and continue with that. So at the
Mhm.
time, that was a huge pressure. And even though I'm really was confident in my decision, there was still so much doubt and stress, right?
Yeah,
And
I can
and
understand. Yeah.
and yeah, and I think it was around 2022, 2023. I think it was October 2022. Actually, October 2022. That was when I graduated. And I think within the first month of graduating, I make a decision that I would say forever changed what I did. Was that I decided to, so at the time I started full time with online arbitrage, but I wouldn't
Okay.
compare myself to really knowledgeable. I would say I was at the range of around 40K a month, but I didn't know that much about Amazon. Like I knew how to source, but I didn't know like the whole full system of what is going on, the detail and such. So I realized in order for me to grow, I need to travel to where the knowledge are at and network with as much people. And this go back to my involvement with Silent Gym and the My Silent Team community ever since the start. A pattern I noticed that was it wasn't the knowledge, right? Like the knowledge is everywhere. I would say knowledge is the not the easiest things to find, but it's still we still able to find throughout books, throughout courses, throughout documents. But it was the people. I would say the people is the hardest single element to find and to facilitate. Like I would never be able to talk to a seven-figure sellers online without knowing somebody. But if
Mhm.
I show up in front of them at a Starbucks, they will talk to me, right? If I'm being nice with them in front, of them, they will absolutely talk to me and share with me. So that's one thing I realized. So I make a trips to California without knowing anybody in California. Actually, I knew a few sellers in Cali, but I never been to Cali. I don't have any family there. I just book a trip, right? I just book a trip there. I was worried before I went, and when I went there, I spent 4 days. There's the best 4 day I ever remember. Just network, just talk, just being a great human first. Like hey, like how's your family? What's your family do? And when I got there, I never focused like how can they help me, right? I always focus like, hey, like who are you first? Like why you started ecoms? Like how's your daughters, how's your dog, just being like a genuine human. And I think the relationship and the experience that I had there like shaped the rest years from then. The relationship, the perspective there, really changed a lot ever since.
Yeah. So you focused on relationships early on, which is something we talk about on this show all the time. I know you've heard me talk about it. Other listeners, maybe if they're new around here, haven't heard me, but that really is the key to success. And I focus every bit as much and am as proud of the culture that's been built in our community as I am the content and the technical accuracy of our training, which is second to none. But I still say the relationships are the true power of this community, because you can't succeed in business going it alone. You have to take a tribe. You have to take some people with you that you can lean on, rely on, and bounce questions off of, and explore opportunities together. You just can't do it alone. It sounds like you're surrounded by some high quality people as a result in your business, which I'd love to dive more into, if you don't mind kind of transitioning to that. Like, let's start talking about your business a little bit,
Oh
some
yeah.
specifics, and unless there's anything else you were hoping to tell us about your team, but I'd love to dig into the numbers, because I've heard you've got a pretty impressive business at this point.
Yes, sir. So at the core of my business, so I also run my own stores, and beside my stores, I run a capital management agency that I manage my partners' stores and also provide service that helping them scale. So in my community, before I was only growing my own stores,
Right.
but with my friends and with the people I work with, I noticed like a pattern of struggle. So in the beginning, whenever someone started or someone is selling the same level with me, I always guide them through, hey, here's the course. Here's the core of my sign team. These are the information that you need. And if you need any more, just contact the consulting, because I don't have a lot of time, so I can help you, or I don't have the skill level that I can help you. The more I grow, the more I learn. I notice that there's some value, there's some skill set that I have built over the years that I can help other people that fit into my criteria. So, for example, the partners that I work with are majority of the people who have tried to sell and also struggle and also have bounced back. So when I see that pattern, I notice that, hey, like they really did try, they really did try to learn. They really did try to solve a problem, but maybe they are lacking some sort of knowledge, some sort of experience, some sort of system. So that's where I come in with my team. And first we work as an agency, meaning that we help them grow, help them fix the problem in there. And when the times, when they actually grow, when we deliver, then we actually go in and we invest our money into the system, into the people, basically called acquisition, right? We acquire a company for specific percent of equities, and we trying to grow alongside with them. And when I share this, I don't want to sell my service, because I only do this to the people that I'm closest with, and it's not something that I want to do publicly. But for the sharing of information here, I just want to be real and transparent and just putting it out there.
Yeah,
And with our
that's a great
company,
model. Yeah, you take on some of the risk. You've taken on some of the risk with a handful of friends and clients, and help them grow their business while owning a percentage of the business. That's a fun business model. Yeah, I love it. How many people have you done this with?
yes, sir. So our team, we currently manage 5 other stores, and
Mhm.
and we want to keep it around 5, because above 5 is so much work and so much complexity that
Sure.
alongside with it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
But one thing that I like to share too is that I would say that was during one of the best month of our Amazon selling journey. I think we was around 300 to 340K a month, and I was only managed my own stores, right? So at that time, I was really happy, right? I was like, hey, like I reached the numbers that not a lot of people reach, but I had the same feeling when I was in medical school. Like, it's the same pattern. Like even though I hit my peak, it was the same pattern of rat race. Like every day I would wake up, I do the same thing. right? I saw my own problem. Like I have the team solving my own problem, but it's the same things and there's no growth. And I would say that grow mindset that has opened a lot of opportunity for me. Like not being, not being comfortable at the current situation, but always looking for room to grow. And one thing I remember the most is a quote that I don't remember the exact word. I'll say the best day of your life sometimes fall off with some of the worst, right? Like where you are at the highest is where you easiest to fall. So I'll
Yeah.
say after that best month of my life are some of the worst months of my life, right? Some of the struggle that I had dealing with Amazon, some of the struggle personally, and going through that, it go back to that moment when I had that plasma donations. So I think that day I think my account was having some problem with the inventory. I think a brand that was gated, I think it was Estee Lauder. I think I was selling Estee Lauder. I had so much inventory in there. I has like 40K worth of Estee Lauder in inventories, and it was certainly hard gated. And
Mm.
somehow that day, I was really emotionally unstable. Like I was really sad. So normally I wouldn't be able to sad because the staff was taking care of it. But somehow, like that day, I opened up my account and I saw that. It was a random moment that not supposed to
Right.
happen, right? And then I opened up my credit card and I saw that credit card bill that hasn't been paid. So certainly my emotion got really unstable. I was really sad. I was sitting here and I was like, hey, is this like how does this feel? And certainly I remember that moment when I had my plasma donations. And as I explained, when plasma donation happen, it's kind of like blood donation. They get Tim, and they go through your skin, and I still remember how hurt it was, for that needle to hit your vein. But somehow I realized that even though it's hurt, it not as hurt as me sitting here and worry about something that I'm unable to control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So yeah,
And
remembering how hard it used to be is a very therapeutic and beneficial thing for those of us who have kind of climbed a mountain, and then you find yourself in pain as a result of this new high that you're on, and this new achievement always comes with a challenge. But then remembering where you came from can be very
yeah,
therapeutic. That sounds like what
remembering
you're
where it
talking
comes
about.
from.
It that's just that it's like it helps you find gratitude again, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the changing moment too, is that I realized that a lot of things that we did in the past is our own fault, but we
Yeah.
never take responsibility for it. For example, like the Estee Lauder situation, I felt hurt and I felt worried and I felt stressed, not because Estee Lauder happened, but because I decided to invest this much, or my company decided to invest this much, you know, and that moment, that really first moment, and even though it sounds like it has been a long journey, there's some situation that happened that really the first time that I felt like it happened, and that time when it happened, I felt like, oh, I never take that responsibility in my life to control the outcome of my life. And when the Esther situation happened, and I remember that plasma donation feelings, I remember that it's painful, but it's not as painful. It's even though it's painful when a needle hit my vein, it's more hurt when I'm not taking enough action to protect myself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah. So
and
it's
that's
owning your mistakes. Right.
owning the mistakes, right? And that's when I was really motivated to grow my system and my companies to the next level. And the next level here isn't just, hiring more people, isn't just hiring 20, 30 people, building like a huge scale, or scale up your Amazon. I think level up here is having the people that share your pain, I'll say that's the most important thing. So, for example, right, when that situation happened, right, I was only, and at that time, my company was only like two, three people, like one manager, one things, right, and I was only one that kind of like hurt because of it, right? Like I was only one that worry about it. But now when a situation like that happened, I'm worried too. But I had, the manager, the sourcing, the purchasing, the account manager, all working together, all worry about it, but not much, but they're all working together to share my pain, to help me with my pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know and that's really drive my purpose of building a team. And I remember this quote, and I still have this quote on my wall, is that, why do you build your business? Is it for pleasure or for pain? Right? And
Wow.
majority of time we start a business because pleasure. We really start business because pleasure. We start business because we want, you know like a house, or we want the dream that we always dream of, the vision that we had. But I say we stay in business because of the pain, not because we like the pain, but because we want to explore that pain and how to get over that pain.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah. See
pleasure
how it
or for
improves
pain.
us. Yeah. It reminds me of that Jim Rohn quote, set out to be a millionaire, not so you can have $1 million, but so you can become the type of person who's capable of earning $1 million. A lot of
Mhm.
work, blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, being honest with yourself, delayed gratification, all the stuff that goes into, like, you're going to be a better person for the journey, right? So, call it the pain if you'd like. Yeah, it's just the challenge of the journey, man. I love it. That's good stuff. Hey, sorry for the interruption, but I've got to remind you that Seller Board is the sponsor for today's episode, and they're doing such a tremendous job supporting this community and this podcast. So many happy users. Many of the leaders on our team use this tool. What does it do? Well, among many other great features, it helps you know which of your products are profitable. All those Amazon fees and expenses, you can finally know exactly how much money you're making on the different products that you're selling, which ones you should be paying more attention to, and which ones you should probably cut out. Don't use your intuition or instincts to make these decisions. Use a tool that tells you the numbers. Sellerboard is very easy to set up. It's very thorough, very detailed, has a great reputation among many, many, many sellers in our community. Hundreds of us are using it. So thank you for sponsoring this community seller board. Jump over to silentjim.com/numbers and check out the offer they have for this community. Just a few dollars gets you started. Let's get back to today's show. Right. So, call it the pain if you'd like. Yeah. It's just the challenge of the journey, man. Well, hey,
Yeah.
in the interest of time, let's pivot towards your business specifically, man. I'd love to hear what you're doing, what you're selling, more about your team, what tools you're using. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're using Kang's system as well, right? That's how I heard about you. Isn't that the
Yes.
software you're using for your business?
Yes. So about, I'd say 7 or 6 months ago or 5 months ago, we started using Kang's system, and we heard about Kang through one of his podcasts. I think with you as well. I think when you
Okay.
first introduced the system. And a background story first, before we using Kang's system, when I first started, I actually did invest some money to build a similar system like Kang. So in background, and I told Kang before, is that Kang system was everything I ever dreamed of. Like everything I ever,
Right.
wanted to have.
Yeah.
And long story short, it fell miserably, but it helped me realize how much work that it has, that it required to build a system like that. So everything that Kang talked about, even though in the beginning I never seen it, like I understood his purpose and his goal.
Yeah.
So I always want a system like that.
Yeah. Well, he's a serious
So
developer. You may know, but there was maybe some listeners who don't know. He he basically built and ran the software, a company he owned before he came into e-commerce. It was like a 9-figure company, and he built the software that ran the whole thing with, like, I don't remember how many employees, 100 and something employees. I mean, a big company. And so he is a serious program developer mind.
oh
And
yeah.
his ability to crank out updates and edits and to make the software do what we need as Amazon sellers, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Yeah. And yeah, that's awesome. So that's how you heard about it on the podcast, huh? So you jumped in 5, 6 months. So you had to transition from some other systems, it sounds like.
Yeah, so we was using Inventory Lab and Scan Power at the time. We still use them alongside, but when we first started with Can System, one of the things that we set out is that to really transition, to not using it as a temporary solution, but to really transition. So I dedicate, a person, a partners that kind of like learn and integrate a system full time to our business. I dedicate a whole staff, a whole VA staff of 4 people to actually doing it, all time, so we can learn the weakness, the strength, how we're gonna use this, how we're gonna change this, how we gonna, and more importantly, how we're gonna change our system and process to Kang workflow.
Right.
Because I'd say that the weakness of a lot of businesses when they transition to a new software is that they want the software to transition to their workflow. And that's the choice that you have to make, is that you have to open up to changing your workflow to the system, because it gonna expose your weakness. Like it is
Mhm.
exposed so much of our system. And as I talk to Kang about this, and I say this to all our partners, is that even though I manage your business, or even though we do management, right, there are so many flaws in our system, and I admit that, and the reason why I want transition is that I want to improve our system and process. And through the journey of transitioning, we we identify so much weakness, right? And we all open up to the system and change it up, you know. So for example, with Khan's system, he basically track by box, tracking by tracking system. So meaning if a box come here today, I scan it in Khan's system, it will show me what go inside that box, right? So in the beginning, we never did it that way. So when I first introduced the warehouse, the warehouse was resistant to it, to an idea
Right.
of changing it,
Right.
and a lot of people would hear their warehouse, refusing to do it or reluctant to change and kind of like accept it. But I realized that if I accept it, then it wouldn't be Kang's system, it would be my system, and it would be so counter intuitive. So that's why I set my goal as a company goal as well, to change our whole system to better fit with his system.
Yeah. And the reason I think that so many people are doing that is because he has one of the most robust businesses running with one of the smallest teams in this business model. A couple people in his warehouse, a couple virtual assistants, and a multiple seven-figure, fully automated Amazon reseller business. I mean, it's hard to beat that example. Very few
Yep.
people have the system and the tools in place to make that happen, and he does. That's what the software does. So yeah, it's probably wise to adapt your systems into his software versus trying to make his software fit what you're used to doing. That kind of defeats the purpose of bringing it in, because it's not just the software; it's the workflow procedure as well that comes with it that adds all the power. And I love how scalable it is. I mean, we've got brand new sellers in our community, Lou, who they're only doing a few $100s a week and they're using it. We got people all the way up multiple seven-figure sellers. They're using it. So it grows with you too. And it helps you establish healthy systems. I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah, because there's many different ways to tackle this business. And we've seen dozens of different strategies for getting your inventory, storing it, turning it around, finding it when you need it, finding your invoices when you need the proof of a receipt or an invoice, like how people do these things. It's all over the map. But the system really systemizes the entire process, right? So we're all going to be talking the same language, I think, soon as we kind of adapt to this as well. The industry, even, I think we're going to shift how the industry talks about this business opportunity, because we're going to have a
Oh
common
yeah.
tool now that's
Oh
across the
yeah,
board.
that's great.
So I'm excited for it. Yeah, and it's
Oh
cool that
yeah.
you appreciate how much work went in developing too, because you almost did the same thing yourself.
Oh yeah. And one thing I realized too is that I'm in the Facebook group for the software, and
Right.
I do notice that, and I do notice that he's really open for adjustment, and that's some of the hardest things that I could found, because software isn't perfect. Like it always
Right.
need fix. I think not a lot of people realize how much work it goes
Yeah.
into fixing a small error or fixing a bugs, or
Yeah.
even how much effort it takes to make an adjustment,
Yeah.
and to be able to really open up for opinion, for criticisms, for opinion, for adjustment like that.
Mhm.
I'll say is the key to make any softwares better.
Yeah. Yeah, I come from a software development background, a fair amount,
Mm.
and you have to be humble enough to accept other people's ideas, and when they call it a bug, be willing to admit like, yeah, there's something that we need to address, and you're constantly prioritizing all the requests and changes that people have, which ones are important, which ones are feasible. But he's done a masterful job with that. But again, that's what he did at a high level. He was a gift. I think God directed him to our community, really a gift to the industry because of his background and experience. And he's been able to integrate these incredible updates and features at such a rapid pace. It's mind-boggling to me that,
Oh,
it's working. We got a couple hundred beta students, you included, and it's working. But tell me more about your business, man. Let's get into how big it is. How big's your team? What are you selling? Let's talk about that a little bit.
yes. Yes. So with our business, with my store, I'm currently doing 150K a month currently. And with the store, we manage the highest store we currently manage is around 130K a month. And with the lowest store ranging around 20K. The gross profit margin we aiming for is always above 20%. And the net profit margin we aiming the lowest around 8% of the profit margin. And the products we sell is never the same with any stores. We
Mm.
diversify and we ranging from 10 to 15% wholesale, and the rest would be RA or OA. So we don't skip out on any business model. We see any business model is, just way for us to source profitable products. And right now we expanding more for brand direct relationship, transition more toward wholesale, making the percentage around 25 to 30% wholesale. And another thing we also focus on that not a lot of people talk about is another aspect of brand direct. So a lot of people think brand direct is just simply, consumer brand, like wholesale brand, but we also focus on building relationship with brands that are private label or brand that already selling on Shopify that they want to make a transition into Amazon. So a lot of opportunities in those business models that we
Absolutely. They call
focus
that
on.
the PPP model. You've heard us talk about that, right? Proven product partnering, where
Yes.
you go to a brand that isn't doing as well as they could or should be on Amazon and you help them, right? It's a beautiful model. And once you've got the qualifications, which you certainly have more than the qualifications, but even newer sellers on Amazon know a lot more than these brands. It's one of the modules inside the Proven Amazon course for those who don't know. But yeah, huge opportunities there as well. So you're managing 5 accounts plus yours. Are these other accounts on the system as well, or have plans to transition, or where are you at in that?
Yeah. So currently we only had 2 accounts under the system. And the reason why is that the other account wants to see how's the efficiency. Because in order for us to transition just such a huge amount of inventory and the process and the system, we need proper planning. And I'll say
Of course.
after a few months of testing and trying, I think we like the result. I think we see the potential in the result, and we see the room for us to grow the uses of the software.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I mean, certainly once deployed, I would think that it would cut down on handling time of inventory, how much time you're looking for lost products, the size of the team needed to manage a large number of units, right? That's where it really kind of that addresses the need in the industry. If you've got a team of 6, you're only going to need a team of 3 once you implement a good system for managing your inventory, right? So there's significant cost savings there, and there's the frustrations too. Lost
Oh,
invoices,
yeah.
lost receipts. And my favorite feature, I think, for me is, and I'm kind of educating people. I know you know this, Lou, but the ability to track all those ASINs and then know when it's time to go back out and get more. The direct ties to Keepa, which other tools don't have. I don't know if you know this, Lou, or not, but Amazon actually doesn't like to see tools integrate Keepa because they don't like Keepa. So this tool will never be listed on Amazon's preferred tool list because it fully integrates Keepa. And Amazon doesn't like that. Amazon does
Mhm.
not like the data that Keepa shows us.
Mhm.
Right. So, but that's not our goal as far as marketing this product. That's not Kang's goal, is to be loved by Amazon. We want to be loved by Amazon sellers. and
Yeah.
help them grow their businesses. Yeah, outstanding. I love hearing about your business, man. So how big's your team?
I would say right now my team is around 10 people.
10. Where are you
Yeah, 10
located?
people. I'm located in Houston, actually. I'm located in Houston, and
Okay.
we have a warehouse in Houston. We have another warehouse in Dallas, and we have a warehouse in Chicago as well.
Fantastic. Man, that's
Yeah,
such a great business that you've built. And coming from a medical school background, that's incredible.
yeah.
That's
And
just
I would say that,
amazing.
and also would like to give a tips to the listener as well, relating
Let's do
to
it.
what the restocking feature that you just mentioned about.
Yeah.
So one impressive change that we made, I say last year, is to focus a lot more on restocking.
Hmm.
And the statistic that we found is that so we split purchasing product into three cycle. Is the first cycle is the initial purchase, right? The secondary purchase and the restocking. So what we found is that with your initial purchase, meaning the first time you buy that product, you're only getting around 10% of the potential profit of that product or that brand. So, for example, if I found a bottle of the hot sauce, right, and I buy it first time, I only reluctant to buy a kind of like a test unit, like 5 unit, 10 unit, right? So I'm really realistically earning around 10% of that whole profit pies, right?
Hmm.
But after that first purchase, then I would consider for the secondary purchase, meaning a secondary restock, right? I would consider buying, I would say, up the unit 50, 100, So in the secondary one, the percentage of profit increase. And not only that, you're not only considering this, but you also consider all the product of this brand, all the product of these suppliers, all the products of the type of discount, the type of deal that you get. So the profit increase. And as I say, restocking is about increasing that potential profit range. So the better you are at restocking, the more profit that you're able to earn.
Right. Yeah.
And
That's a real skill that develops. And we like to see people go very conservative if they're new, but as they grow, yeah, getting more aggressive about your restock and your levels. I mean, that's where the money's made, right?
oh yeah. Yeah. And what I found too is that the act of purchasing product not is also an act of acquiring information. And information is king. Information is opportunity. Meaning that if you had never purchased this bottle, you would never had the data to back it up.
Mhm.
And you would
Mhm.
never had the opportunity for the second restock and the third restock. So one thing that I tell my sourcing staff, and this is the foundation of sourcing, is that you have to be able to acquire information first, meaning that diversifying, testing a product is simply the process of acquiring informations. And when you acquire information, you also have to use that information, meaning that if you ever purchase a product and you forget about it, that means you are not using the data. You're not using your experience. You're not using your money to the max capacity. So even when that bottle of Tabasco is not profitable, we still have to find way to dive in more, to find ways to use that data to make it profitable. Oh, it's not probably not that brand is going to be profitable, but all the brand is going to be profitable in that suppliers, or that way of we using coupon discount for this brand isn't that good, but maybe for other brand, maybe for in other websites, so many opportunity or ways that we can extract it. But the most important is to focus on the data, not the emotion, or not the fact that you are losing money on that initial purchase.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to go by instinct. You're learning some very valuable. Of course, you've learned some very valuable lessons, and yeah, you've got to be data driven. You've got to be almost calloused about the data. What is the data telling me to do next? What are the numbers telling me? And like King talks about all of his products when he's using the system software, he loves the cycle. You're talking about your Tabasco. Well, maybe it's no longer profitable. Well, what's the cycle? It's beautiful because the software will alert you, hey, this ASIN just became attractive again, right? So it's back on your radar and you don't have to do anything. I think one of the things that happens with our students, Lou, is they get a large catalog. Let's say, large is a relative number, but let's say they've got 300 ASINs now that they've sold in the last year. Well, they've lost track of anything that sold more than 3 months ago. They've completely lost track and forgotten about it. This software doesn't let you forget. It's constantly revisiting those old ASINs. You can fill your catalog with ASINs. Even if they only sell a few times a year, it's going to alert you when it's time to pay attention to it again. And that's just such a good example, I think, of what you're saying is don't lose track of the data. Don't lose track of every ASIN represents opportunity with the brand, with other similar related items, with the distributor or wholesaler you use. Behind every ASIN, even if it was a failed test, is multiple new doors of opportunity if you choose to see it that way. And I love that lesson. Yeah, what else do you have for us? Because we will need to wrap this episode up pretty soon. But if you've got any more tips or strategies that you've learned along the way, I'd love to hear them. And anything else that was on your mind, of course, as well.
Oh yeah. So I would say one of the lesson I learned in the past few months, and it's related to selling on e-commerce as well, is that I always used to think that e-commerce is just about selling products, right? So the past few months I learned is also about selling products, but there are so many products out there that you sell, and one of the best product that anybody can all start with. No matter if you have money, no matter if you're small, is yourself. Like yourself is the personal brand is the most important thing. And as I mentioned in the beginning, my focus is growing my e-commerce and also my content creation businesses as well. So content creation is, I would say, is another aspect of e-commerce that not a lot of people talk about. So for example, for the past few months, I've been really learning how to live stream, right? Live stream, like just being there in front of the camera myself, trying out TikTok, trying out how to live stream. And it's so hard, it's one of the hardest form of selling online, because you can make a video and edit that video, have script, but if you standing in front of live audience and keeping them engaging, it's one of the hardest form of selling online. But also another easiest form is also to create a personal brand, like a brand that other people know that valuable to them, and you helping them to solve problems, to get over a challenge, to better yourself. The personal brand, always going to be there with you over and over the test of time. And that's one thing that fascinated me when I first got in your community, and even your example is that your personal brand isn't about material stuff, right?
Right.
And as I say before, why do you start a business? Is it for pleasure or for pain? So when I look at a figure that I want to learn, that's why I ask questions. Are they doing it for pleasure or for pain? Because for pleasure is good. There's nothing wrong that starting a business for pleasure. But a lot of time with people who started with pleasure and staying for pleasure, I don't learn anything. I try to learn from those people. The best people I have learned from, they stay in business because of pain, and you can sense it, like you can sense it through their wording, their actions, their network, their messages, their action when they make mistakes. And I'm sure that you're not a perfect human being. You still
Absolutely
make
not.
mistake, and I still see it. Yeah, but I don't care about that. But I care more about how you respond to those mistakes, and that thing really important, because it's build a personal brand. And I try to model that. I try to learn that, so I first could be a better human being, and second, I could also improve my brand, so I can also bring more value to other people as well.
Yeah. Oh, this is an observation of what you're saying. I don't know of anyone in business who hasn't been surprised, body slammed, betrayed, disappointed. If you stick with it long enough and succeed at any level, you're going to have a handful of heartbreaks and things that happen to you. But I would so much rather work with, I've even adapted this terminology. I'd so much rather work with a leader with a limp, meaning they've been hit hard enough that they carry it with them every day and they understand and remember the lesson of that difficult season. I had to, your story, if I wanted to do business, I had to go donate plasma. I've never forgotten that. It's part of my story. I'm going to share that forever, proudly, right? That's part of your journey, part of your story. There's a humility required there to expose your weaknesses publicly, but you're so much more relatable that way. Because if you're one of these guys that just looks like everything they touch turns to gold and they've never made any mistakes and everything they do, they win, 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 and they're in it for the pleasure, as you said, right? Come
Yeah.
with me. It's going to be a blast. Those leaders make me nervous because that's not realistic. It's not how the world works, right? I want to know how they handle when things don't go right. I want to know if when your integrity is on the line, if what you said, you meant every word. And when it doesn't go well, you apologize when you make mistakes. And, I want to deal with real people. I think that's what the part of the value of this community is. We've just got a whole lot of people that think that way. Nobody needs more spotlight. That's something that makes me very nervous. A leader who needs spotlight or wants more attention or wants credit for their decisions and their ideas every time anyone mentions it, those kind of people make me nervous. We repel them. We've got no spotlight here. There's no one. We're a big community of leaders helping each other, and I think that's part of why I enjoy being around here as much as I have.
One last thing and is so important for me to say it to, and it's related to what you just say.
Mm.
I think one remarkable moment in my life that I would like to tell a stories, and is also the day that I listened to your podcast with Kong, when Kong shared his stories of him losing his child.
Yes.
I'll say it was a really special day because I was driving my car, just deliver, packages for UPS, and I was sitting in the parking lot of UPS and listening to the whole podcast. And I never done it before, I never just sitting in one spot and really focus on that stories. But that stories explode for me because it's special for me because it's kind of encouraged me to explore more about my religions, my belief,
Mm.
because I grew up as someone who was an atheist. My family never had any religions, never follow anyone. But my dad, when he got me, he converted to Catholic. And
Okay.
when I moved to the state around 14 years ago, I also help in Catholic Church. So I convert ever since then. But when I convert, I always had a feeling I never understand my belief. Like I know how to pray. I know what is the scripture. I know how to say this, but I never really know what is my God. I never know the basic of my belief. I never really know what I believe in. So even though it sounds not relatable to the story of Kong, but that moment sometimes trigger me to discover more about my faith. You know, what is the true? What do you believe in? Why do you scare?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the common theme that you see on my Facebook is I always share the journey that I discovered about my belief. And the funny thing is, Kang is always comment on it. Like he always comment like, "Hey, like this is that." Like and I find it's pretty, pretty relatable because that journey started because of Kang, sharing his story. And
Yeah.
now, however, I share my story, Kang going there and Kang comment about it.
Yeah, so you guys have built a relationship. He spoke very highly of you. I mean, that's why you're on our show today. And I want to give people that episode number. I'm looking it up while you've been talking to make sure I give the right number. I think it's 790. No, maybe it's 890. I'm going to find the right number here so we can give it to people.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the best episode I ever heard. Like the best, I would say the
Yeah.
best podcast or video I ever seen online. To
Oh,
be
I'll stick
honest.
it in the show notes. Yeah, it's arguably one of the favorite episodes of mine. We're coming up on 1,000 episodes now, and for some reason I've forgotten the exact episode number, but I'll stick it in the show notes for people. But yeah, he shares very transparently about the loss of his son Brian and the impact that had on their family and how e-commerce and this community kind of helped him through. And he got the vision for the software and just decided he wanted to make that a part of his contribution back to this this community that had been such a significant role in his life. And I talk to him weekly, if not every couple of days, and we've developed a great relationship. It's an incredible story for sure, and I'm very proud of his journey. And I love the spiritual impact as well that his story is having, and leading people closer to God. Man, that's a lot of why we do everything we do around here. this
Yeah.
this is ministry. I call it my ministry. So yeah, I love seeing that impact. Um, but it's been such a pleasure hanging out with you, Lou. Unfortunately, I do need to start winding this episode up. I need to move on to something else scheduled in my day. But I can't wait to see where you're going from here. You're on a leadership journey in this community. I know it. You're on a leadership track. We're going to be hearing from you more, seeing your name more. Can't wait to see what other ways you continue to grow and contribute to this community. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today, buddy. That was a great interview.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody who's involved in the community. Help me to this day and help all the people to this day as well.
Yeah, well, you're gonna be a big part of inspiring a lot of people, I think, Lou. And I like I said, I'm genuinely excited. I say it sometimes on this show. If you were a stock, I'd be buying as much as I could, man. Like buying some Bitcoin, dude. I'm in. Let's go. I'll buy some Lou stock. Yeah, you've got such a creative approach and such a determined approach to this business, and I'm just excited. You're going to be at our Orlando conference?
Yes, sir. I'll make time for it.
Nice. Very good. I can't wait to see you there, buddy. So that's the last 3 days of May. Come meet Lou in Orlando with us. The last 3 days of May, 29th, 30th, and 31st. The Proven Conference has details.
Gotcha. So same
place.
like last year.
Yeah, same place as last year. TheProvenConference.com has those details. And for the listeners who want to join us, make plans. It's going to be a great time. But I do have to wrap this episode up. Lou, you did a great job, man. Thank you, my friend. And for the listeners who hung out with us today, hey, we have good news for you. If this is the first episode you've ever heard, we have hundreds of interviews like this. And you heard us mention a few resources and tools. Those will all be in the show notes. And you can jump down there and click those links so you don't have to write down a bunch of notes. It's all there for you. And on behalf of the team that puts these episodes together and the leadership team around here, the great coaches in our community and leaders, hey, thanks for being the best part of our community. Thanks for hanging out with us today. And we'll have another great episode for you very soon. We'll talk to you then. Before I let you go, one last reminder to our incredible sponsor, Seller Board, thank you. And to our listeners, go check out the special offer they have for us. Hundreds of us use that tool to track our listings on Amazon and know which ones are profitable, which ones aren't, and a whole bunch of other really cool features. You can learn all about this inexpensive, easy to set up tool at silentjimdotcom/numbers. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. We'll have another great episode for you very soon.